For anyone who wants to play this acoustic version, there are three options to play it on a guitar. This is option 3, Safe and Sound by Tonight Alive acoustic version on alternate tuning. Listening to the record, you can hear brighter sounds, and these are indications of open strings at work. But the pitches of those strings are obviously lower than the standard tuning. The song is in key of D sharp major, and this led me to think that the strings are tuned down by a half step. Now let's tune the strings down a half step. Right now the guitar is on standard tuning, so the first string is tuned to E. So lowering it down by a half step, we should read D sharp. Now the first string is tuned down to D sharp. Let's tune down the second string. Right now it's tuned to B. Tuning it down a half step lower, we should read A sharp. So now the second string is tuned to A sharp. Let's tune down the third string. Right now it's tuned to G. If we tune it down by a half step, we should read F sharp. There. Let's tune down the fourth string. It's tuned to D, and to tune it down by a half step, we should read C sharp. There. Now let's tune down the fifth string, which is tuned to A. Tuning it down a half step, we should read G sharp. There. And lastly, the sixth string is tuned to E. Tuning it down by a half step, we should read D sharp. There. Now all six strings are tuned down by a half step, and this is what we call flat tuning. But watching the live performance of Jenna and Jake, it appears that the sixth string is tuned a whole step more. So instead of D sharp, we're going to tune it down and we should read C sharp. There. So the alternate tuning for this option is flat tuning with the sixth string tuned down to C sharp. So it's D sharp on the first string, the second string is tuned down to A sharp, the third string is tuned down to F sharp, the fourth string is tuned down to C sharp, the fifth string is tuned down to G sharp, and the sixth string is tuned down to C sharp. With this alternate tuning, the shapes for the chords D sharp, G minor, C minor, G sharp, and A sharp have changed. And that's what we are going to discuss next. The shapes and chords that I'll be presenting in this option is largely based on the live performance of Jenna and Jake. And the counterpart of D sharp on standard tuning for this alternate tuning is this one, this shape. You have your index finger on the 5th string at 7th fret, your ring finger on the 4th string at 9th fret, and your small finger on the 3rd string at 9th fret. The 1st and the 2nd strings are left open. The 6th string is marked with an X, so it's a dead string. This is actually the opening chord. And this shape consists of only two different notes, the 1st and the 5th. The 3rd note is missing. A major chord is supposed to be composed of the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th notes of the major scale in key of D sharp. But with this shape and for this tuning, the 3rd note is missing. And that's why I call this shape D sharp, in parentheses, no 3rd. In option 1, D sharp major is followed by G minor. But for this option, I call the next chord as G minor 6/D. And this is the shape for this chord. Since we are coming from D sharp major, to transition to G minor 6/D, all you have to do is you move the index finger 1 fret back, still on the same string, but it goes here. This note is actually D. And for this shape, this is the lowest sounding note. So this is actually the bass note for this chord. And that is the reason why you have the /D after the character G minor 6. And to complete the chord, now that you have your index finger at the next lower fret, you will have to add your middle finger on the 3rd string at 8th fret. And you will have to take out your small finger. The 2nd and the 1st strings are still left open, but the 6th string is still marked with an X, so it's dead. So from D sharp major, no 3rd, to G minor 6/D, move back your index finger 1 fret back, and then position your middle finger on the 3rd string at 8th fret. Take out the ring finger or the small finger. Now this is G minor 6/D. On standard tuning, the next chord is C minor. But for this option, I would call the next chord as C minor 7th. And this is the shape. So from G minor 6/D, you keep the same fingering, but your index finger has to move down by 2 frets. So the index finger goes to 4th fret. And then you have your ring finger on the 6th string, but this time you'll position your small finger on the 3rd string at 6th fret. And your middle finger goes out. And the 2nd and the 1st strings are still left open. So this is C minor 7th. I would call this a C minor 7th on this tuning. On standard tuning, the next chord is G sharp major. But looking at the chords played by Jake, it appears that this is the shape for his G sharp, or the counterpart for G sharp major. And I would actually call this chord as G sharp suspended to /D sharp. The 6th string is tuned to C sharp, but now you have a finger, which is the middle finger, on the 6th string at 2nd fret. Now this note is D sharp. And that's the reason why I have the /D sharp. And it tells that this is the lowest sounding note, as this is the lowest tuned string. So for G sharp suspended to /D sharp, you have your middle finger on the 6th string at 2nd fret. The 5th string is left open. You have your ring finger on the 4th string at 2nd fret. and the small finger on the third string at second fret. The second and the first strings are left open, and all strings are to be played. No dead strings. So this is G sharp suspended 2 slash D sharp. The chord that follows next is A sharp major on standard tuned guitar. But for this alternate tuning, I would call the next chord as A sharp suspended 4th slash F. And the shape for this chord is this one. It's like the shape for G sharp. With these three fingers, you will have to move 2 frets up. So it goes to 4th fret. And you will have to position your index finger on the 5th string at 2nd fret. So this is the shape for A sharp suspended 4th slash F. And again, we have the slash F, and that means F is the lowest note or the bass note, and it's actually this note played by the middle finger on the 6th string at 4th fret. As the 6th string is tuned to C sharp, playing it at 4th fret, that note would be F. So for A sharp suspended 4th slash F, middle finger on the 6th string at 4th fret, index finger on the 5th string at 2nd fret, ring finger on the 4th string at 4th fret, small finger on the 3rd string at 4th fret, and you still have the 2nd and the 1st strings left open. So the fingering is basically similar to G sharp suspended. All you have to do is move these 3 fingers 2 frets up to 4th fret and add your index finger on the 5th string at 2nd fret. So those are the shapes for the chords on alternate tuning, and they apply for the verses and also on refrain. But for the refrain, there's another shape for D sharp no third. If you listen to the record, it's still that kind of tone, but the pitch is much lower. And also, if you look at Jake, he have this kind of fingering. And so I've realized that this is his shape for D sharp no third for the refrain part. So whenever you see D sharp no third for the refrain part, instead of playing this shape, which sounds higher, you'll have to do this shape, which sounds lower. And for this shape, you have to use your index fingers as a bar to press the bass strings, the 6th, the 5th, and the 4th. But the 3rd string is played at 4th fret, and the 2nd string is played at 5th fret. And for this chord or shape, we're not playing the 1st string. That's the reason why it's marked with an X. So you strum 5 strings. Now let's discuss the strumming pattern. And let's begin with the intro. The opening chord is D sharp major, no third. And you have learned that this is the shape for D sharp no third. And for the intro, it's just strummed once. But you will have to hold it for 2 measures. So if the tempo is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then that single downstroke should last for 2 measures before you start strumming the same chord or before you start the verse. So for the intro, it's just this chord, D sharp no third, a single downstroke for 2 measures. And then right after that is the verse. And the verse begins with the same chord. So for the intro, it goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now for the first verse, I suggest for this pattern. I'm not saying that that's the exact pattern, but based on how I hear it, it's like it's this pattern. So let me explain the pattern. Looking at the pattern, you see downstrokes mostly. You have downstroke at count 1, at count 2, at count 3, and at count 4. And then you see a pair of downstroke and upstroke, the one that I've labeled downstroke slash upstroke. The first pair that you see is right on the end between counts 1 and 2. And the second time you see that pair is at count 3. So what I mean there is, for this chord, D sharp major, no third, you strum at count 1, downstroke, 1, and when you get to N between count 1 and 2, you do a couple or a pair of down up. And be careful that you should not strum the 6th string, because for D sharp no third, the 6th string is marked with an X. What you can do to avoid hitting the 6th string as you strum is to position your middle finger on that string. Just touch it lightly, but don't press it, as pressing it would cause a sound. So you just touch it lightly so that it's muted. It sounds like this. So back to the pattern, you have downstroke at count 1. On the end between counts 1 and 2, you have down up, downstroke at count 2. And on the end between counts 2 and 3, another downstroke. Then at count number 3, that's when you have the second pair, down up. And on the end between counts 3 and 4, it's another downstroke. And the last stroke is right at count 4. And this last stroke rings for 1 beat. If our tempo is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. At a faster tempo, it sounds like this. So that's the pattern that I'm suggesting for the verse. You apply it on D sharp, no third, and you'll do the same for G minor 6/D. And also for C minor 7th. And for G sharp suspended 2nd/D sharp. And also for A sharp suspended 4th/F. And that's the pattern that I'm suggesting for those chords on the verses. As for the playing time, the pattern is good for 1 measure. For the verses, D sharp, no third, is to be played for 2 measures. So we'll have to play that pattern for 2 rounds for D sharp, no third. Then after that, you have G minor for 2 measures also. And then you have C minor 7th for 2 measures also. And then for G sharp, suspended 2nd/D sharp is just 1 measure. And then right after that, you move to A sharp suspended 4/F for 1 measure also. After verse 1, it's followed by another verse. So you'll do the same thing. Now for the refrain part, this is the strumming pattern or rhythmic pattern that I'm suggesting for the first three chords of refrain. And that would be for C minor 7th for one measure, A sharp suspended 4th slash F for one measure, and one measure also for G sharp suspended 2nd slash D sharp. And as you can see, the strumming pattern, it's all downstrokes. You have downstroke right at count 1, and the second stroke is at right at count 2. The third downstroke is right at count 3. The fourth downstroke is on the end between counts 3 and 4. And the last stroke is right at count 4. So at slow tempo, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the pattern sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So with chords, C minor 7th, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then goes to A sharp suspended 4th slash F, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then it goes to G sharp suspended 2nd slash D sharp, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So practice first at a slow tempo, and then when you get comfortable doing it, then play it at the recorded tempo. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then when you go back to A sharp suspended 4 slash F, you have another strumming pattern. So the pattern that you see when we go back to A sharp suspended 4 slash F is just composed of 3 downstrokes, and that happens right at count 1, on the end between counts 1 and 2, and right at count 2. So it goes like this, 1 and 2, but right at count 3, you can hear the chuck sounds. So all you have to do is, after doing those 3 downstrokes, when you get to count number 3, release the pressure on the strings, just touch them lightly, and then the other strings you have to touch with the skin of your fingers. So touch the strings lightly so that they produce mute sounds. And you just strum it this way. So it goes like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then when you go back to G sharp suspended 2nd slash D sharp, you'll go back to the first pattern that I suggested for refrain, and that is here shown. Downstroke at count 1, downstroke at count 2, downstroke at count 3, downstroke on the end between counts 3 and 4, and downstroke at count 4. So it goes like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you'll do the same for the next chord, which is A sharp suspended 4th slash F, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the next chord that follows that is C minor 7th. And for C minor 7th, I'm suggesting for this pattern. And as you can see, you have downstroke at count 1, downstroke on the end between counts 1 and 2, and downstroke right at count 2. But then it's followed by 2 pairs of down up. And then at count 4, that's another downstroke. And on the end after count 4, the last downstroke. So the rhythm of that pattern sounds like this. If our tempo is at the slow tempo, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, the 2 pairs of downstroke, upstroke that follows is so hard to write, but it's just in between counts 2 and 4. So you just have to space them out evenly. Down, up, and then downstroke at count 4, and on the end after count 4. So again, at the slow tempo, it sounds like this, 1 and 2, 4 and this way, 1 and 2, and then immediately you do a pair of down up, 4 and. So at the recorded tempo, And this pattern is what you're going to apply for C minor 7. And you're going to apply this also to D sharp no third. But remember, the shape for D sharp no third for the refrain part is this one. For the next chord, which is G sharp suspended second slash D sharp, the strumming pattern that I'm suggesting is this one. If you notice, it's very much similar to the previous pattern, except that you don't have a downstroke on the end between counts 1 and 2. So for G sharp suspended second slash D sharp, you have this pattern 1 and 2, and then it's followed by a pair of down, up, and then at count 4, a downstroke, and on the end after 4, another downstroke. So 1 and 2, 4 and then after this, the next chord is A sharp suspended fourth slash F, and this is the pattern for this chord. You only have 2 downstrokes right at count 1 and on the end after count 1. So it goes like this, 1 and, but right at count 2 you see the word break. So that means right there at count 2 you stop the strings from ringing and you keep the silence for the rest of the measure for A sharp suspended fourth slash F. So it goes like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then after that, it's followed by D sharp no third, and this would be the shape. And it will be played for 2 measures, and the pattern is this one, which is the pattern that I first suggested. So it goes like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. For the third verse, we can still apply the pattern that I suggested for verses 1 and 2, but there are some portions where you have chalk sounds, meaning this kind of sound. So for the first chord for the third verse, it's D sharp no third, and this is the shape, and the pattern is this one, and you do it for 2 measures, and then you go to G minor 6 slash D. But instead of doing that for 2 measures, you'll do the pattern for 1 measure for this chord, and this, on the second measure, it's the chalk sound. So instead of applying the strumming pattern for the second measure of G minor, you have the chalk sound, which is given in this pattern. So as you can see, you have downstroke at count 1, at count 2, at count 3, but the rest on other positions, you have the pair of downstroke and upstroke. So you have that pair on the end between counts 1 and 2, on the end between counts 2 and 3, and then on the end between counts 3 and 4, and right at count 4, and on the end after count 4. So at a slow tempo, it sounds like this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it goes like this. And for you to be able to create mute sounds, instead of keeping the shape of G minor 6 slash D, you may have to break the shape and just cover those strings with your fingers and do the pattern 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it goes like this. And then for the next chord, which is C minor 7th, back to the first pattern for 2 measures, and you carry on with the pattern for G sharp suspended second slash D sharp, and also for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, and then it goes to the next verse, which is verse 4, for 2 measures, and then to G minor for 1 measure. But on the second measure for G minor, again, you mute the G minor using that all chalk sounds. And the rhythm for that chalk sound is something like this. The rhythm is the opposite of the first chalk sound. In the first chalk sound, you have the pair of down and up strokes between beat counts. But for this one, it's right on the beat. So down up at count 1, at count 2, at count 3, at count 4. But on the end, between counts 1 and 2, it's just a downstroke. On the end, between counts 2 and 3, it's just a downstroke. And on the end, between counts 3 and 4, it's just a downstroke. And on the end, right after 4, is a pair of down up. So it's like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So then this is followed by C minor, and we apply the main rhythmic pattern, the first pattern that I suggested. So, and that would be for 2 measures for C minor. And then it's followed by G sharp suspended second slash D sharp for 1 measure. And then 1 measure for A suspended fourth slash F. And then we repeat refrain. And you can apply what we have discussed for the refrain. And after the refrain part, it's followed by C minor 7th with a single downstroke. And you have to hold it for 2 measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. To A sharp suspended fourth slash F for 2 measures, a single downstroke also. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then to G sharp suspended second slash D sharp for 2 measures also. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then this is followed by A sharp suspended fourth slash F. But this time the pattern is this one. It's an 8-note rhythm, all downstrokes. So as you can see, for the first measure of A sharp suspended fourth slash F, you have downstroke on all counts, at 1, at 2, at 3, and at 4. But in between those beat counts where you have the ends, all downstrokes too. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then on the second measure, you carry on with that rhythm, still downstroke at count 1 on the end between counts 1 and 2, and right at count 2. But this is followed by chalk sound again. The rhythm for that mute sound or chalk sound is just like this. So it's a series of downstrokes, and then upstroke, upstroke, upstroke. So for the full 2 measures of A sharp suspended fourth slash F, it sounds like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then this is followed by G sharp suspended second slash D sharp. The rhythmic pattern for G sharp suspended second slash D sharp is given here. And as you can see, you have the couple of upstroke and downstroke right at count 1. And then you have downstroke at count 2, downstroke on the end between counts 2 and 3. And then on the end between counts 3 and 4, you have a couple of upstroke, downstroke, and downstroke right at count 4. So at the slower tempos like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So with chords starting with G sharp, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's just for 1 measure. You do the same for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you do the same for C minor 7th, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and do the same for D sharp, no third. And remember, for this time, the shape for D sharp, no third is given with this shape. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then this is followed by G sharp. You do the same pattern for one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then to A sharp suspended fourth slash F for one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then to C minor 7. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then to D sharp, no third, but with this shape. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then for the G sharp suspended second slash D sharp that follows, it's just a single downstroke for one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then to A sharp suspended fourth slash F, you do this pattern. It's just a downstroke right at count 1 and 2 and 3 and but when you get to count 4, that's when you have this chuck sound, downstroke but muted right at count 4, and on the end that follows that, it's a couple of downstroke, upstroke, all muted. So for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, it sounds like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and immediately you have to mute. All you have to do is just slightly break the shape so you can touch the strings. So again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then right after that you have C minor 7th, and the pattern is similar to the previous one, but it's still given here. You have downstroke right at count 1, on the end between counts 1 and 2, right at count 2, and then you have two pairs of down, up, and then downstroke at count 4, and on the end after count 4. So 1 and 2, 4 and then you do the same for D sharp, no third, with this shape. And then after that you go to G sharp suspended second slash D sharp, and this is the pattern. You should be able to recognize this pattern as this has been given previously. So 1 and 2, 4 and then for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, we have another pattern. And as you can see, downstroke at count 1, upstroke on the end between counts 1 and 2, but when you get to count 2, you break it, you stop the strings from ringing, and then downstroke on the end between counts 2 and 3, upstroke right at count 3, then you break it right on the end between counts 3 and 4, and then at count 4 you have the pair of down, up, down, down, but this is muted. So for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, sounds like this at the slow tempo: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so that's how you do it. And then it goes to G sharp suspended second slash D sharp, and again you see the pattern: downstroke at count 1, at count 2 you have the pair of upstroke, downstroke, and then on the end between counts 2 and 3 you have a downstroke, and then the next event would be on the end between counts 3 and 4 is a pair of upstroke, downstroke, and then downstroke at count 4. So it sounds like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, you do this pattern: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then for C minor 7th, you do this pattern: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you do the same thing for A sharp suspended fourth slash F, and then to G sharp, 1 and 2 and then to A sharp suspended /F, and then to C minor 7th, and then to A sharp suspended /F, and then to G sharp suspended 2nd/D sharp, and then lastly for A sharp suspended /F, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's it. Click this link for option 3 playthrough or demonstration. I hope you find this tutorial helpful in learning to play the song. Don't forget to click the like and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.